Computer. Okay, the recording is now in progress. Vamsi Bhatt's just joining us. Hare Krishna. So we are on page 95, which is Knowledge of Sadhana, chapter 5, part 1. And we're just finishing this chapter, and then we're going to go into part 2. So I thought it might be good if we just have a summary of what we've covered so far in this chapter. Um, just it's always good to do a summary to just remind us of what we've covered. So Raj here has spoken about the importance of knowledge of Krishna as a means for becoming purified, and he highlights this verse here from chapter 4. Vita raga bayakroda manmayamo pashritaha bahovagana tapasa mat putam pavam agataha. Okay, so to that degree that we develop knowledge of Krishna, to that degree we can be free of anarthas or bad habits. So that knowledge, as we know, is divided into three: sambandha, abhidheya, and prayoga. Yeah, knowledge of relationship, practice, and perfection. So that's what that knowledge specifically means. It also includes understanding the truth of Krishna, ultimately the truth of devotional service, or includes the truth of love of Godhead, prema tattva, bhava tattva, the truth of emotional ecstasy, the truth of transcendental mellows, and the truth of the pastimes of the Lord. That's all included in Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayoja. So that will further assist us to become purified. Yeah, and then as example of Lord Brahma, um, in order for him to create the universe, he was given divine knowledge, yeah, given the essence of Bhagavatam, yeah, and that kept him on the path of pure devotion as well. Yeah, then Maharaj quotes this verse. This is from the Chatur Sloki of the Shrimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, uh, knowledge about me described in the scriptures is very confidential and has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. So that knowledge is realized in conjunction with devotional service, as the example of Lord Brahma. Yeah, he was given knowledge, but he was also continued he continued in his pure devotion to the Lord. Yeah, example there. Um, Marge is summarizing here that verse 2931. So some substance of the verse which is quoted, that perfection can be successful based on relevant spiritual knowledge. Yeah. Without that, it, it the secrets of bhakti remain inaccessible. Yeah. So remember this. This also Maharaj sums it up. We must be inquisitive, assiduous, and studious. I think we mentioned last week we have to be orthodox Hare Krishnas. Yeah. This is like Orthodox Jews, but Orthodox Hare Krishnas. Yeah. And then now we're getting close to where we left off last week. Now this then we spoke about this. So what happens if devotees do not study the science of devotion and put their learning into practice? Basically, one will remain struggling with anarthas. Yeah. So rather than developing the Shakti or attraction to Krishna, one will be battling with the mind. Yeah. Senses and bad habits. Instead of artha pravritti, what's it? Artha pravritti, it'd be artha nivritti. Artha nivritti. Remember those two terms? Instead of acquiring the jewels of realization, we'll be struggling with anarthas. All, yeah. So, okay. And then we spoke about this. Can you remember the pigeon that was killed by a hawk? He went back to Godhead because the hawk chased him around the temple. and he killed the pigeon because the pigeon circumambulated the temple. He went back to Godhead. So Maharaj brings this up in the context here. So we may do things wrong in sadhana, and that's to be expected. But when we realize what we're doing, we correct ourselves, and some repentance is there. Yeah. Now, then Maharaj says, but if we consciously, knowing the potency of bhakti, and we consciously transgress the rules, knowing the potency of bhakti, then that will be an offense. Yeah. So here, summarizing, therefore, sadhakas are therefore will not abuse those teachings on bhakti that are meant to instill faith in non-devotees. Yeah. So it's not as if when we hear about the pigeon chased around the temple by a hawk that we run around the temple 3 times and we drastic exaggeration, but then we commit suicide and we go back to God. Sorry, doesn't work like that. All right, so Maharaj gave that as a little warning, and then he refers to Gopakama as he often does. Yeah, so he was advised to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vishnu Dutas advised him to perfect his devotion by hearing Bhagavatam. Yeah, and then he would learn what is anukul and what is favorable and what is anukul for the attainment of his goal. Yeah. And then we brought this up. Say if we have a handicap in the sense that we're not very studious and we may not be able, we might not be so inclined to study and learn all the details which we're kind of going over. Yeah, and Maharaj brings up this here. Nehi bikramo nashosti pratyavana vijitesu apamidhamasya trayate mehatobaya and anantas chintayanto mam yejana payupasate te sim nitya payukdamon yogikshemi vahamiham. So the key is sincerity of purpose and faith in the process. Yeah, that should be there, and then the power of bhakti alone will furnish you with the knowledge required to make all advancement. Yeah. So this verse, Maharaj speaks on anantas chintayanto mam yejana vipasati. What does it mean to carry what devotees lack? That will come from inspiration from senior devotees, those who have bhakti, who practice bhakti, senior Vaishnavas, through their guidance. And so under their guidance of the spiritual master or spiritual masters, then we gradually yield to results for which a sadhaka aspires. And that's where we left off last week, and that's where we are now, page 95. All right, I hope that little summary helped. Is there any questions or comments on that? If we go straight to the reading. So just do as we're doing. Otherwise, you can just raise your hand if you like to read. Those of you who have the textbook with you, I have a copy of Sankalpa Kaumudi. Okay, Kurunamai has shot her hand up there, very enthusiastic. She's first. Okay, you can read from 90. Perhaps you can just finish this chapter, Mother Kurunamai. You can read 95, 96, and 97.
Okay.
Yeah.
Practitioners receive guidance in sadhana from other Vaishnavas and from their spiritual masters. This is confirmed in the definition of Madhyama Adhikari Guru, who is a sincere friend to all the devotees of the Lord and who show mercy to ignorant people who are innocent. Hence, sadhakas can discover where their practices are lacking, how that lack can be corrected, and how adequate practices can be further enhanced. The inspiration for such guidance originates from the devotion within the hearts of their well-wishers. This inspiration is an outcome of principle Bhaktyas Sanjitaya bhaktya. Bhakti gives rise to bhakti. In tandem with the guidance of Vaishnavas, in the guidance of the Lord, when the Lord sees sadhaka's sincere efforts to hear about him and to know him, he not only gives a devotee knowledge with which to progress, but he also removes the obstacles to such progress. Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, Supersoul, in everyone's heart, the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Progressive growth of devotion is thus dependent on the strength of a devotee's faith and depth of his knowledge. These two factors, already discussed in earlier chapters, are key to higher grades of sadhana and to results they bestow. We can therefore see that devotional service is very much a step-by-step process, as clarified by the Lord himself. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. And while the process of sadhana and its results are systematic and universal, every devotee's path is unique to him or her. Similarly, the stages and symptoms of perfection are equally scientific, and yet each devotee's relationship with Krishna and the ecstasies born of that relationship are similarly unique. Scriptures give examples of how different devotees tread their own path to perfection while at the same time fulfilling the standard devotional conditions. As a young boy, Narad was blessed by Bhaktivedanta Vaishnavas with devotion, and although freed of all family encumbrances, he wrongly remained attached to the process of meditation in secluded places. Taking pity on Narad, the Lord appeared in order to correct the boy's malpractice and then disappeared, never to be seen again. Simmering in the fire of separation from Krishna, Narad gradually became free of subtle attachments and edged towards perfection, which he achieved at death. Srimad Bhagavatam also gives the example of the sinner Ajamil, who was purified by accidentally chanting the Lord's name and blessed by the presence of the Vishnudattas. In a spiritually elevated state, he took up sadhana bhakti in Haridwar and even eventually attained a spiritual body in which he returned to Vaikuntha. Similarly, Gopakumar attained all manner of spiritual achievements by faithfully chanting his Diksha mantra. But when he hit the glass ceiling of regulative sadhana, he had the good fortune to meet the Vishnudattas and Narad Muni, who guided him to spontaneous, loving devotion and eventually to his desired destination. Here we see three devotees, each on their unique journey, and yet their desired perfections are achieved by following authoritative, time tested standards of practice. Sadhana Bhakti, practiced under the vigilant guidance of the spiritual master and advanced Vaishnavas, gradually yields the result for which a sadhaka aspires. And while spiritual knowledge is based on the teachings of the scriptures, sadhana is not a matter of collecting information. The fruition of practice is dependent on divine grace, and divine grace spontaneously awakens transcendental knowledge, which then enables a sadhaka to systematically climb the devotional stairway to Vaikuntha. Indeed, the blessings of the Lord Krishna and his devotees are so powerful that even in their physical absence, a sadhaka can attain all perfection by strictly following their guidance. As Gopkumar's spiritual master told him, because you are very dear to me, I have now given you everything I possess. By the power of this mantra, you will understand and attain everything on your own. A practicing devotee may be assured that spiritual success is at hand. He may have committed a variety of sins and feeling handicapped by bad habits, but devotional service and the blessings of great personalities will ensure that he acquires the realized knowledge and detachment from the world that are necessary to attain both intermediate and ultimate perfections.
Okay, thank you. Very nice reading. All right, so that finishes this chapter. Any reflections on that? Something that grabbed your attention? Something or any questions? Um, I should have. It'd be good if I'd put some more slides for this, but these 2 pages I didn't do that. Perhaps I'll add that on after. Um, but yeah, I kind of, for me, it struck me again while reading this part here. The fruition of practice is dependent upon divine grace. So we may read many books, which we do. We study Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar Devotion that we're doing, Nectar of Instruction. But ultimately, we remain dependent upon Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Um, yeah, divine grace,
Can
where
I ask a
that knowledge
question?
becomes realized. So from Gyan to, we could say from, yeah, from Gyan to Vigyan, what comes in between is grace, yeah, is mercy. Yeah, there was a question there. Someone?
Yeah, can I ask a question, Guru?
Yeah, please.
It says that where it says that sadhana bhakti has to be practiced under the Guru and senior Vaishnavas.
Yeah,
But what if they don't point out our mistake? We could be making mistake. We don't know. Someone has to tell us. But a lot of time, people try to be very nice and very pleasant, and they won't tell us there's a mistake, or can you do this properly? How do we handle that?
good point. It's a good question. Perhaps I'll offer it out to the learned Vaishnavas. Everyone's clear on the question, yeah? Sometimes Vaishnavas, senior Vaishnavas, or those who we're associating or we're hearing from, they may, for one reason or another, be hesitant to point out what
Yes.
or what is wrong in our approach, in our attitude, or in our practice.
So how do we rectify if there's no one to tell us?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's see if someone has any ideas on this.
To me, I think you can speak to someone if you think someone's not doing something correctly, if you know that they're going to be able to take it, or they might understand it, or want to correct themselves. But
That is us trying to correct someone. But what about ourselves? If we are making mistake and there's no one to tell us, what do we do then?
sometimes I feel that when you this is me, right? I mean, I'm not that. I feel that if you seriously want to correct yourself and you keep praying, and somehow or other you'll hear somebody talking, or you're reading something somewhere. That's the point I was thinking about. That's what I wanted. That's for me. It'll just come up in a class, in your reading, or even from within. You'll realize, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said it this way. I should do it this way. It just that's how I feel anyway. But I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, that's quite a profound point that Mother Chandravali's making, and I think perhaps we can all agree with that, isn't it? I'm
Yes,
sure
I agree.
we've all had some inner alarms that go off, hopefully, especially if we're sincere. You know, we may be, it may be that we're not feeling so much happiness, so much bliss, and then we should have to reflect. Perhaps we've had a unpleasant exchange with another devotee. That's just one specific example. So that's, I think, as Maharaj has just been explaining as well, that if we're sincere, then Krishna will will help us from within, so that we can affect our spiritual life. I think that's a very good point that Mother Chandra is making. It might have been in answer to your question. Another point is that it's good to have someone who you have a relationship with that maybe can point things out to you. You know, it may not be a junior. It best if it's a peer. Peer is someone of equal standing, and they can point things out to you. Of course, then it's a spiritual master, but we may not. We may interact with the spiritual master in a very formal setting, and it may not be like we're with the spiritual master for him to kind of observe so much about us. But if we are fortunate to have the direct guidance on a daily basis of our spiritual master, then that's his duty, is to correct us. We should be ready for that. Yeah, like I've got some devotees who I consider peers, some good friends of mine, and they're quite straightforward with me. you know, and yeah, sometimes when I'm struggling, things are happening, and I phone them up, and they're peers, and they're not, juniors are not going to tell you anything, not much. Seniors might be hard to come by, you know, but they may just come through for an hour or 2 hours and give a class and then go. But if you've got some peers, some friends, who can give you advice, so that's another answer to that question as well. So it's good to develop that. Like one time, many years ago, my chanting wasn't correct. This was many years ago, and even my spiritual master had to eventually correct me. I was chanting too many Hare Krishnas for one mantra, so it wasn't so bad. but
He
it
took
but
you on a
yeah,
fast track.
but it wasn't the Maha Mantra, as my Guru Maharaj told me. He said, yeah, I he said, where'd you get that mantra from? I didn't give it to you. So what I did after that is I asked my friends to every now and again to listen to my chanting and to give me feedback. So that was very good. I wanted that feedback. This is to my peers. Difficult to tell that to juniors. They're not kind of so inclined to find fault with your chanting. Did that help, Mother Rajkishore? These 2 points there.
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Introspection is always good, especially because always you're all sincere devotees, also, so introspection, honest introspection is always good. And also just by reading the scriptures and reading of the uh, reading what's it called, of the way that saints behave. Just by reading that, we can reflect on how we're acting, and we can often it can be quite purifying, where we realize actually we're not exactly acting like a Mahatma when we're thinking of revenge upon someone.
Yeah.
It's not exactly, we're not thinking like Mahatmanas do. We're not thinking of everyone's. We're not actually having the mentality of everyone's a well-wisher. For some, maybe for some not. So then, Mahat Saivam Davam Muktis. Yeah?
Yes, thank you.
A very good question. Very important point. Because, yeah, we live to be corrected, as Vaisheshika says. Live to be corrected. All right, anything else on this? Otherwise, we can go here.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, someone's voice there. A bit quiet, but go.
No, I wanted to ask you,
Padma
Prabhu.
Mataji, yes.
Uh, just am I audible? Sorry.
Yes, just about.
Oh my God. Okay. I was thinking, just want to elaborate on the point of Mother Chandravali said. Yes, we hear it, and sometimes, actually, a very surprising thing happened today, and I had many things in my which I was thinking, and many things. Somehow, I felt I want to. I don't know why. I wanted to speak to Mother Ramashakti.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to me, why I felt like that also. And in
Okay.
fact, I did call Mother Chandravali to get to speak to her, but I never got her. She called me
Oh,
again. At that time, I was not available, and somehow I didn't get it. But then Archana Mataji gave Mother Ramashakti's number.
okay.
She spoke to me for 1.5 hours,
I can imagine.
and but I want to say, Prabhu, it is exactly what Mother Chandravali said. One by one, she's taking one by one point from I have in my heart, she's taking and speaking.
Yeah. Very good. So
I,
that's yeah. Yeah. So taking yeah, seeking or speaking to Vaishnavas and opening one's heart.
yeah, but
Wow.
no, I didn't say even to anyone anything to her. She's talking on her. She's I just said, oh, how is Vrindavan? But I was of course I was talking about the game Haridas Warrior, because I'm very much inspired with Haridas Warrior and Govardhan. And but then after that, she started speaking about our Guru Maharaj, and she's just on and on, going on. What most of my my doubts and my concerns, she spoke. I don't know how.
Yeah. So that's obviously Krishna.
With
That's how Krishna
Krishna
works.
from within.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just I think as Mother Chandravali was saying that sometimes you may sit in a class and the speaker, the message is kind of wow, that is meant for me. That is really relevant to me.
huh,
That point I really have to meditate upon. Yeah, so that's the potency of Vaishnava association. You can imagine then when Prabhupada says if one thinking they can make advancement outside the association of Vaishnavas, they're living in a big hallucination. You know,
this was really amazing. I
it's in
had
the association of Vaishnavas that they're gonna point sometimes even unconsciously they will point things out, you know.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, so thank you for sharing that. This is highlighting that point that Mother Chandravali made. All right.
yeah. Thank you,
So
Prabhu.
now we're going into part two, the definition and purpose of sadhana, and this part is divided into 4 chapters. Okay, so we'll be reading about definition of sadhana. Then there's circular causality. All right, circular causality is interesting. It's quite technical description, but and questioning the definition further, and then the appearance of bhava. Yeah, that's all in this part. We're reading part two. Okay, I can see there Sahachari Mother, she has a hand up, so without further ado, we can jump into chapter 6, part 2. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Definition and purpose of sadhana. As a precursor to defining sadhana bhakti, this section introduces the specific relationship between practice, sadhana, and its goal, sadhya. The main theme of our presentation is that there must be an ontological correspondence between the two. Devotional scriptures establish this well-known truth, which is acknowledged by all 4 schools of Vaishnavas, namely Brahma, Sri Rudra, and Kumara. Sanatana Goswami summarizes this principle as Swasadhananu Rupam, Hi Phalam Sarvatra Siddhayati. In all spheres of activity, the results one achieves match the discipline one has practiced. In other words, every sadhya has its corresponding sadhana. Even in a layman's world, people prepare themselves in ways that correspond to the goals for which they strive. If someone wants to become a doctor, they naturally attend medical school, not engineering school. The same holds true in matters of spiritual attainment. A yogi who strives to be endowed with mystic powers must accept the disciples that lead to that perfection and not, for example, the disciples that lead to heavenly enjoyment.
Discipline.
Similarly, the practices of
Disciplines is the word.
Disciplines that lead to heavenly enjoyment. Similarly, the practices of Ashtanga Yoga give a different result than those of Karma Yoga. Every sadhya requires a corresponding sadhana. It cannot be otherwise. This principle also applies within the realm of bhakti. Devotional perfections are variegated, and one devotional practice does not lead to any and every devotional attainment possible. A different sadhana is needed to attain Vaikuntha than to attain Dwarka, and yet a different one to reach Vraj. A devotee must therefore carefully study Srila Prabhupada's books to clearly understand which sadhana corresponds to which sadhya. By such effort, he will be able to better recognize and follow the sadhana that is consistent with the devotional perfection he craves. The Lord explains that he has established the eternal principles of bhakti in such a way that the nature of devotee's desire precipitates a corresponding perfection. This is conveyed in the well-known verse, "As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha." Readers may ask, but surely chanting Hare Krishna and following the ninefold path of devotional service ensure our return to Godhead? The answer is yes, the activities ensure that perfection. However, going back to Godhead is a general term that mean many things, such as going to any one of an unlimited number of Vaikuntha planets, to Vaikuntha Ayodhya, to Purushottama Kshetra, to Dwaraka, or to Vraj. Chanting Hare Krishna and following the 9 limbs of bhakti are generic to all perfections. However, a devotee becomes more specific in his desired perfection. He also becomes selective about certain aspects of his practice. For example, a devotee who aspires to become a servant of Lord Ramachandra will prefer to make a pilgrimage to Ayodhya, which one desires to serve Krishna's queens will visit Dwaraka. Similarly, a sadhaka attached to serving Krishna as a cowherd boy will hear those pastimes, while another in the conjugal mood will hear of those.
Perhaps we'll just pause
It is
there.
the same with secular.
Perhaps we'll just
Yeah.
pause there. If there's any reflections on that. This is a repeated theme that Maharaj, he's introducing it now, and he speaks more about this as well. It's quite a prominent theme in Sankalpa Kaumudi, because Sankalpa means a determination. So, what is your specific Sankalpa? Yeah. Is there any questions or comments?
I'm sure a lot of people don't know what is my Sankalpa. They just carry on chanting or doing
Yeah.
some service. They're not sure what is
Yeah.
my Sankalpa.
Spot on. This is exactly what Maharaj is speaking about. It's kind of vague. We're kind of vague. We have this vague idea we're going to go back to Godhead, but specifically, we have to know where in Godhead we're going to go, and we're not going to go there unless we're developing a strong attachment, unless we're developing a strong attachment to that specific place. So let's just take it. We're heading. I think most of us, I don't know, but we're heading hopefully to Raj Bhakti. Yeah. Some of us might not be. Might be heading to Dwarka or Ayodhya. But that's the Gaudiya Vaishnava. So that means we have to kind of expose ourselves to the details of Raj and the mood and the pastimes. Yeah. And that will then be the sadhya of our practice. So in other words, while we're doing our practice as sadhana, that should be in mind. As Raj Kishore was saying, but most it may not be. It's just like I chant Hare Krishna and I do my service, and let's hope at the end of my life I go back to Godhead. I mean, you might well do, I don't know, but no, we have to be very specific. That's what Maharaj is pointing out here. And therefore, once we understand the goal, then our sadhana should be will then be dovetailed to that particular goal, as Maharaj is mentioning here. Like if you want to go to Ayodhya, you're going to be absorbed, obviously, in Lord Ram and the Ramayana. You'll read Ramayana. You'll be absorbed in every pastime of Ramayana. The Ramayana, sorry, not Ramayana, the Ramayana. All right? Yeah. But good point, Madhuraj Kishore. You brought out exactly the point that Maharaj is addressing. Yes, someone has it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I was thinking, that verse, as all surrender to me, I
Yeah, it's
reward.
here. Yeah, yatam
So,
Yeah,
yes, Ma'am Prabhupada. That's what I was thinking, that to my understanding, that as we surrender to Krishna, how we surrender, Krishna from within will reciprocate and show us, reward us accordingly by showing us which direction we're going, guiding us along that direction.
yeah,
I mean, I felt that. I don't know.
yeah. That's that's what Maharaj is
That's
kind of.
kind of my understanding
It's,
from.
it's bringing out here. It's more deeper because one sense you
Yes.
can take this verse in a very general sense. If you get really specific, it might, as they surrender unto me. So, like, as they surrender unto me could be as you learn more about the rasas of Raj,
That's it.
Krishna will award you accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you really get absorbed in awe and reverential worship for Krishna, then Krishna will reward you accordingly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was connecting that to our Nectar of Devotion reading, lately when we mix rasas and things like that, and
Yeah.
how we were forming the picture, the scenes, pictures. So I was just thinking how
Yeah.
according to the way we surrender, Krishna will then within show us where we're going and will attach us to that kind of desires
Yeah.
or that kind of reading, hearing,
Yeah.
speaking, all that. So
Yeah.
that's, I reward them accordingly.
Yeah. So
Is that,
Krishna will award you.
is that the correct understanding, or?
Yeah, I could so very much so. Yeah, so it means it should be, so the mood should gradually should accompany a sadhana. Okay, it's going to be ridey, but as we
Of
progress,
course.
become more spontaneous. But the idea is that we're chanting to actually go there to that specific place. So like, as we advance in devotional service, it should get more specific, and then Krishna will award us accordingly.
Mhm. Because you can think of that as a general thing. Oh, one surrenders that way, Krishna would accordingly
Yeah,
do.
I surrender,
But that
like,
can be just general. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I'm chanting
So
this, and Krishna will then also give you according to that.
yeah, so it may. But I think also I'm just thinking though, what will happen if someone remains with a general, not a specific desire, with a general desire. I just do what I'm told. I do my service, and whatever. I go back to Godhead. But you don't really, you haven't developed an attachment for Godhead or the details of the rasas or. So what happens to such a person? I would say if that person is sincere, then then they will come in contact, or they will hear about Raj from a devotee who is that way inclined, and then hopefully they will become attracted. It's just a side point, I guess, but
No, that's right, because I was thinking the same thing, that how due to lockdown, how this group has come together, just how Krishna has picked this,
yeah. And now you
and
become
how we were just
Asapa
reading.
Bhaktas. You will become.
Yeah, how we used to invite our gurus and things like that, and how now it's completely gone kind of deeper in a different direction. But
Yeah.
when you think of all the books that we're studying, it's kind of going
Yeah,
in
hopefully.
figure out Raj
Yeah, that's
Bhav.
the idea. Because that's what
Yeah,
nectar devotion's all about. As you know, that's what Rupa Goswami means when he says Uttam Bhakti. That's the bhakti he's presenting.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
and
Murli
that,
Prabhu as well, determination
Yeah.
as well is so important that we have to determine to go to this section, as you say, Vraj Bhakti, you know. So
Yeah,
that's another,
that's called
yeah,
Loba. That's called
yeah,
greed. And Marge will
yeah.
speak about the development of that greed as well. Loba. Yeah,
And that's what, yeah, the more we lobe for Krishna's
yeah,
love, the service, anything we can get out of it.
yeah.
So
And
that's for our sadhana, isn't it?
yeah, and this development of greed, it's a very slow but sure gradual development. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, definitely
Greed
not.
will
Yeah.
become more and more condensed 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50 years, 55 years, 60 years. That that greed will build and build and build. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's not something you can just pick up from reading.
Yeah, definitely not.
Something
Yeah.
that comes
But
with sincere practice and consequential revelation from that practice, and your greed you become really mature, you know.
and just like now, what we do every day, except on weekends, we don't have this, you know, together reading. And I think like our matureness is getting more mature. That we understanding is, as you said, and the time is, you know, it's helping us in our spiritual path.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's what it's about. So Marge mentioned it's like knowledge.
Yeah.
You know? To that degree of knowledge, we can make advancement. Yeah, very good, very good. Um,
Hare Krishna
uh,
Prabhu, I have a question, Prabhu.
yes, mother, please. Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen carefully. You're,
Raja Bhakti, you have been speaking, and yes, we want to have. But I just remembered again this Mother Kulangana. She was not talking about Krishna at all. She was about
Goranga.
Chaitanya, Chaitanya.
Yeah.
So what? How can I understand that, Prabhu? And I
Well,
remember
well,
even Bhakti Rasam, sorry, ma Prabhu, Bhakti Rasamita Maharaj saying Radha Krishna. No, 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 Chaitanya, Chaitanya. She was totally Chaitanya. So how
yeah,
can I understand
Goranga. Yeah.
that, Prabhu?
So I think some of us might know, but I mean, that's for one, that's our gateway to Radha Krishna is through the
Mhm.
grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah,
And for example, if one, I think we mentioned before, isn't it? If one is their main bhav or their main meditation is focused on Gauranga, they
yeah,
will take birth in the place what's called Sweetadweep in the spiritual world, if
yeah,
I'm correct. And that's where Lord Gauranga is performing his pastimes.
yeah.
Now, them pastimes that he's performing and the Sankirtan that he's performing is all about Raj Bhakti.
Okay,
So
okay.
they're absorbed, like Lord Chaitanya, for instance, when he wakes up in the morning, he is meditating upon Radha and Krishna waking up, you know. And throughout the day, he's absorbed in Krishna Leela, enacting plays, and that's what. So they're experiencing Krishna Leela through the chanting of Sankirtan. It's difficult, perhaps, to complete. So in one sense, they're experiencing like all the associates of Lord Chaitanya, they would experience Raj Bhakti in the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya.
So through,
Yeah, and so that's one situation. Or another situation may be where one may have a kind of a equal disposition to Raj and to Lord Chaitanya, and then apparently they go to both places.
hmm.
Don't ask me how that happens. I have to
Yeah,
ask
just
Krishna that one.
you did mention, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then if one is exclusively, well, that exclusiveness of Radha and Krishna will not be to the degree that it's doesn't include Lord Chaitanya, because there's no way of it. Nothing works without Lord Chaitanya's grace, without his mercy. So some degree of appreciation and worship of Lord Gauranga is there. But it's interesting. It's an interesting subject, because a lot of the Goswami's books, Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and others, they're not about Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah.
It's all about Raj Bhakti. It's all about Madhuri Rais. It's all about Raj Bhakti. They're not spending their time writing about Lord Chaitanya, but how much devotion they have for Lord Gauranga, and the whole ability that flow of bhakti of Raj is coming by the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. Because Lord Chaitanya is directing us to Raj, and that's what he's come to give. He's come to give Raj. He's not. But if one becomes really attached to Lord Chaitanya in his form, as in his householder form,
Yeah.
then one can associate with him in that form. But they will not be devoid of knowledge and relishing Raj Bhakti, because it's Lord Chaitanya. He is the personification of Raj Bhakti. He's the personification of spontaneous devotion. Does that help?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you very much. And Prabhu, if somebody develops some attraction attraction to Haridas Varya, what will
Yeah,
happen to that
Haridasa
person?
Vaya. You're speaking about Haridasa Vaya as in Giri Govardhan?
Yes, Giri Govardhan.
Okay. So the question,
And
well, what's that?
what will,
Well, where's that?
yeah,
That's Raj Bhakti,
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that's why the worship of Govardhan is considered to be a worship actually on the Raganuga platform, because it's a worship of Raj Bhakti
Yeah,
directly. So it doesn't mean that necessarily if you worship a Govardhan Shila, you're automatically Raganuga Bhakta. Because we worship Govardhan Shila, but we worship through Vaidhi. We offer this now, we do that now. It may not spontaneous devotion and the mellows of Raj may not be pouring from our heart when we're worshipping Govardhan. It's kind of Vaidhi, the way we do it, but actually it is a worship directly of the pastimes of Raj, because in Govardhan there's Radhakund, there at the bottom Shyamakund.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Thank you,
yeah.
Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Should we have another? Let's check the time. Just coming up to 10:02. Who hasn't read? Whose hand is there? Anupama. Anupama, you like to read? We're on page.
Page 103, Prabhu, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, at the top. It is the same with secular
yeah.
education.
It is the same with secular education. Children are initially taught the same basic learning skills, reading, writing, arithmetic, and so on. But as they mature, education becomes more specialized, either sciences or arts in high school, and then even more specific disciplines in university, like engineering, law, medicine, etc. And based on what profession they aspire after, students must choose their respective course of study, like aeronautical engineering, corporate law, cardiology, and so on. Kaviraj Goswami retells the distinction that Krishna makes between the two different goals attained by two primary branches of devotion, regulated and spontaneous. Everywhere in the world, people worship me according to scriptural injunctions, but simply by following such regulative principles, one cannot attain the loving sentiments of the devotees in Vijabhumi. Knowing my opulences, the whole world looks upon me with awe and veneration, but devotion made feeble by such reverence does not attract me. By performing such regulated devotional service in awe and veneration, one must go to Vaikuntha and attain the four kinds of liberation. These verses confirm their similar devotional activities done with different moods, regulated or spontaneous, yield different destinations, Vaikuntha or Vraj, respectively. While regulative service may award 4 kinds of liberation and their corresponding love, it cannot award residence in Braj or the spontaneous love relished by the Brajvasis. That is only possible through spontaneous devotion. Srila Prabhupada emphasizes this truth throughout his books. Moreover, His Divine Grace makes clear that a sadhana cannot result in any and every kind of sadhya. A practice can only result in its own corresponding perfection and no other. For example, he writes, the process of vidhi-marg, following the regulative principles, is utilized in the worship of Lakshmi Narayan, whereas the process of spontaneous service, following in the footsteps of the gopis, who are the denizens of Vrindavana, is transcendently more advanced and is the process whereby Radha and Krishna are worshipped. One cannot attain this elevated position while worshipping the Lord in his opulence. Those attracted by the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna must follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Only then is it possible to enter into the Lord's service in Golak Vrindavan and directly associate with Radha and Krishna. We Gaudiya Vaishnavas are followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami. And while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave devotees access to all kinds of perfection, he appeared in the world to disclose the means by which to accomplish a long-forgotten attainment that no other incarnation has ever revealed, the loving devotion unique to the residents of Raj. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disclosed not only the sadhana for and the sadhya of Raj Bhakti, but he also revealed a kind of Raj Bhakti that had been hidden from even the most astute transcendentalist, the unwedded conjugal love for Krishna possessed by the gopis and their maidservants. Rupa Goswami reveals this unique mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his introduction to the play Vidyagada Madhavana. May the Supreme Lord, is known as the son of Srimati Sachidevi, be transcendently situated in the innermost core of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has descended in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most elevated manner of devotional service, the manner of conjugal love. Sri Prabhupada comments on this verse in this way. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this age of Kali to exhibit the super excellence of Madhura Ras, a gift never previously bestowed by any acharya or incarnation. While Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not record in writing the sadhana to attain Raj Bhakti, his teachings and the examples of his personal ecstasies were recorded by his followers, notably the 6 Goswamis.
Okay, perhaps we'll pause there, and if there's any reflections on that, speaking about Lord Chaitanya, and Maharaj is bringing him up here, as this is what he's giving.
Something really caught me was, like where Maharaj is saying that you go to the university to do engineer, law, medicine, whatever.
Yeah.
Then going into engineering or medicine, like medicine, then you do the normal medicine course, and as you go further, you start then having branches. You start picking what you like, what you're good at, or what you feel happy with. So same in Krishna conscious. So we practice, like you were saying earlier, we practice chanting, hearing, whatever. And then as you progress, you will then get into what you like, what rasa you want to be, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Sorry.
No, that's correct. And generally that's the tenor as Sri Gaudiya Vaishnavas that we're going to be directed to, because we're part of the Gaudiya Vaishnava, and we're reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. We've been given a nectar of devotion. We have Bhagavad Gita as well, of course, and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And what's the What's the biggest part of Bhagavatam? 10th canto, 80 chapters. It's dedicated to Krishna. Of course, Krishna and Dwarka as well, but large parts directed towards Raj. So hopefully that is the general, that there is the, for someone who's a conscientious or really conscientious is the right word, but that is the general that is a general direction which we should be attracted to, being part of ISKCON, yeah, being part of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. There should be the general tradictory, or what's it called, tradictory, or the direction that we're generally all following. And then, you know, there may be some not examples, and there may be some what's it called, or maybe some people who are in ISKCON but they're not going in that same direction. Yeah, forget the word. But yeah, so I'm just agreeing with what you're saying, Mother. Anything else from here? This? Yep. So what's the time? We've got 4 minutes left. What should we do? Where we leave off? I always, yeah. Let me just read this last part here. Then perhaps we can stop there till it gets to the page 106. So in essence, the sadhana for Raj Bhakti, which is adopted after purification through regulated devotion, is based on hearing and remembering Krishna's loving exchanges with the Rajrasis, becoming one of their followers, and taking up residence in Vrindavan. And these practices must be accompanied by the constant chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, chanting that is suffraced, or how do you pronounce that? Suffraced with the aspiration to enter into the pastimes of Loka Vrindavan. More will be said about this topic in a later part of this book, wherein we describe the essential ingredients defining sadhana, what distinguishes one kind of sadhana from another, what kinds of prema result from different sadhanas, and what kinds of prema consign Vaishnavas to what abodes. In conclusion, readers may contemplate the philosophical maxim of Sanatana Goswami that was cited earlier. It is a rule of thumb to guide the discerning sadhaka. It is the rule of thumb to guide the discerning sadhaka. In light of this truth, a thoughtful Vaishnava will value even more the knowledge Srila Prabhupada has given in his books. He will have no doubt where in the spiritual world he wants to go, what kind of love is needed to get there, and more importantly, what practices he has to undertake in his journey to attain these goals. Again, here is that aphorism. Siddhasya lakshana yatsyat sadhanam sadhakasyatat. The practitioner and the means of practice should be in accord with their goal. Okay? Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. So I think
Muli
that's,
Prabhu,
yes.
yeah, I was just wanting to say what you got on the board. You know, you're right. It's
Okay, yeah.
so, yes, one cannot attain this elevated position while worshipping the Lord in his opulence. Those attracted by the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna must follow in the footsteps of gopis. And
Yeah.
you know, it's well said, so lovely written about that. It's so true as well. Only the possible to enter into the Lord's service in Goloka Vrindavan and directly associate with Radha and Krishna.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And there was, so Marge then, what, he just, I've jumped pages again, and I'll keep doing that. He mentioned here, he gave it in, and he summed it up. So he said, in essence, the sadhana for Raj Bhakti, which is adopted after purification, as we've read, at least to the stage of Nishta, through regulated devotion, is based on hearing and remembering Krishna's loving exchanges with the Rajrasis. and then becoming one of their followers. And Maharaj will elaborate on that as well, what that means. And we'll speak on this in our readings of Nectar Instruction. There's one particular verse which Rupa Goswami mentions of how that is done from a sadhaka's point of view, as well as someone who's practicing more or Raganuga. So take up residence in Vrindavan. All right, so quite a clear message we got today, isn't it? We got today is to be focused and hopefully on specifically what are, and to develop specific aspiration for specific type of devotion. Hopefully that.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Lovely.
So
Thank
we'll
you so
stop
much.
there for today. Finishing on page 106. Am I going to put in a
One
bookmark? I've
second.
got one of these bookmarks.
Can I
Sorry?
talk to
Murli,
can I talk to you and Vamsi after a little bit? Don't
Okay.
log off.
Okay.
I just want to ask something.
Murli Prabhu.
I'll stop the recording.